Hi and welcome to the second part of my playlist series where I build a .NET MAUI app from scratch. Today I will continue where I ended last time. So last time we built the login view, or actually we loaded the Spotify login view and we acquired the token. So today we will store the token in a secure way and we will build our first real view, a search view. So let's get started with that. So let's open Visual Studio. So here we have the code where we ended last time. So the first thing we will do is to store the access token and the refresh token in secure storage. And we have built-in support for that within .NET MAUI. But I like to wrap that in a separate service class. And that because we want to have the code testable and we don't want to use secure storage in tests. So we create a separate service for that. And that also makes it easier if we want to switch to another secure storage. For example, if we will take this code to Blazor and a website. So let's do that. We create an iSecure service. So first we create an interface. iSecure storage service, and that one will have three methods: save, contains, and get. And now we can go and create an implementation for that. So new class, secure storage service, and we add the interface iStorage service, add the methods and contains. Then we can do like this: secure storage dot default dot get async, because it will not have a secure storage built in. So we do get async, we pass the key, and then we do like this. Var result await. Okay, so if result is equal to null, then we return false. Otherwise return true. And we need to add the async keyword up here because we have an await method inside of that. Okay, so easy is that. So now we can go and use get. So that will basically be the same. So we can copy this code. We add async keyword here. And the reason I want the contains method is sometimes you just want to check if you have a value there or not. So instead of returning false here, we will instead throw an exception. Throw new key not found exception. No key in secure storage. So, and otherwise we return result. Just like that. So, and now we have one method left, and that is just save. And that one is simple. Await secure storage dot set async, pass the key and the value, just like that. So as you see, secure storage in .NET MAUI is really simple. So before we forget that, we go and add this to the IOC container, and we do add this as a singleton as well. So builder.services.add singleton iSecure storage service, and map that to secure storage. Okay, now we can go to the Spotify service and we can add this to the constructor. So we inject it there. So Spotify service and iSecure storage service. Add it to a private read-only field. And now we can save the access token and the refresh token, so we can use them later. So secure storage service dot save And now we can use name of result.accessToken as the key for this, and then we pass the access token and save it. We need a await, just like that. We copy the row, and so we can save the refresh token too. So refresh token, yes. So now we have saved that to secure storage. And now we can go and create another view, the first view of the app. So let's go and create the home view. So we go here, we add a new file, .NET MAUI, content page SAML, and we call it home view. And for that we need a home view model. Just like that. And with view models, you know that they should have the view model as their base class. We created that one in the first episode, and that is just an empty abstract class right now that have tiny view model as its base class. But I always create those view models because I often want to add something to them later. And if I do that from the beginning, I don't need to go and change base view model for all my view models. So that's the reason why I have it there. So now we can go to MAUI program and we can add those view model now also, so we don't forget to do that later and we'll get an error when we try to run this app. So home view model and home view. So, and now we can go to the view and inject the view model into it, because this is also something that I often forget, and then I will get an error when I run the app. So let's do it from the beginning, so I will do that later. So home view model, and you can add that in a field also because we maybe want to use that later. And binding context is equal to home view model, just like that. And now we will also remove content page here because we are using tiny MVVM, and tiny MVVM has their own base view. So let's remove content page and we go to the SAML and we will change the base class. You only have to do this once, so you don't need to do it both here in the SAML and in the code behind. But you cannot only do it in the code behind, but you can only do it in the SAML. So that's the reason why I do that. So XML NS MVVM, and we import the tiny MVVM namespace. So, and then we have MVVM, and then we have tiny view. And the reason we want to use this is because this will help us wire up some stuff that we can use in the view model. For example, initialize overrides on appearing, on disappearing. So we don't need to call that ourselves from the view model. But I will show you how to use that later in this video. So now when we have created these views, we can go and add them to the shell. And now we have the login page that are the default page when we start the app for the first time. But we will also go and add a tab bar, because that's something that we will have in our app when we have logged in. So you create a tab bar. Right now we will only have one tab, but we will add more tabs later during this series. So we create a tab bar with shell content, title, home, and we add a route, home, and we will also add a route to the tab bar, and that can be main, for example. I used to use that for the main content of the app. Login will be when we start the app, but that will not be our main part of the app. So then we have title, route, and now we need a content table template to map the page exactly as we did here. So we can copy that one, and instead we say home view here. So now we can format the code a bit nicer, and we're done with that. But I also want to have an icon, so let's go and add one. So add existing files, because I already have one icon prepared here. So we have this IC home SVG, and if you remember, when you add an SVG file to a MAUI project, it will compile into PNGs. So here in the icon property, we will use IC_home.png like that. And we also need to go and verify that this is a MAUI image. I don't really know why they set this as a bundle resource by default. It should be MAUI image. And now when we have this, we can go back to the login view model and we create a navigation here. So here we have the initialize call to the Spotify service, and let's add a variable to we can check if this was success. So if result is true, then we can navigate. And navigation is part of TinyMVM. It's more or less just a wrapper around shell. So you don't need to use shell.current in your view models, because I like to have my view models clean from stuff like that. So we navigate, and we then navigate to main, as the route name of the TabBar was. So let's go and run the app. Last time I ran it only on the iOS simulator. So my idea today is to use the Android emulator so that you can see that it works on both devices. So let's run. So here the app is. We need to log in again. Or actually we don't need to log in, we just need to accept it because I've already logged in. So we can click the button and below there, and nothing happens. So we set the breakpoint here, and we add an exception catch point. So we will stay on all exceptions. And then we open the app again, we click login, Spotify. Okay, something's wrong, so we need to restart the app. Okay, we can just go continue with those errors, because you will always have them when you start the app, but they are nothing that affect the run of the app, so we can continue with them. So okay, log into Spotify, click the button at the end. We need to fix the padding there later. Okay, result true, so that means that we have an access token, so probably something is wrong with the navigation. So let's step it through. Navigation has not been initialized. Okay, I know why we get this one. Okay, and that is because we're using TinyMVM, but what we never did last time was to add this row to the builder here. Use TinyMVM, and what that does is that it sets up the navigation services for us and everything that we need for TinyMVM. So now we can try and run this again. Click the button there. We can remove the catch point because we hopefully don't need that one now. Open up the emulator, log in, click it through. Okay, we are at the home view, and as you can see, we have no tab bar here right now, and the reason for that is because we only have one item there. If we add more later, it will show up. So, but if we have acquired an access token already, we don't want to go via the login view. So let's go and check that when we start the app. So we go to the login view model, and here we add an override of initialize, and this initialize method will run every time the binding context is set if you have TinyView as the base view of view. So let's go and check if we did that in the first episode. So yes, we have TinyView as the base class, so it should be fine to write the code there. So let's go back to the login view and add the async keyword here and await there. And I prefer to always keep the base calls and often in the beginnings because we want to change what happened after that. You can also do it in the end. It depends on what you want to do. But in most cases, I have the base calls in the beginning of methods. So now we can go here and we can also inject secure storage service here. And add a field. And we can now check if we have an access token. So if await secure storage service dot contains and auth result, I think was the name of the class. Yes. We also need a name of, if that should work, name of auth result dot access token. Okay, if we have one saved, we can go and navigate to the home view. And right now we will not handle the refresh token, and if the access token has expired, we will do that in a later episode. So we just go here and navigate. Await navigation dot navigate to, and we will have the same navigation here as we had in the handle auth code method here. So now we will come directly to the home view, and that means that we can start to create the home view. So let's go and do that. So if you have used the Spotify app, you probably know that they have a search view or a search bar, and when you click that search bar, it will move up to the title view. This is not exactly a clone of the Spotify app, but I think that was a pretty nice thing to have. So we will do the same in this app. So the first thing we need then is a search bar. Search bar, so we just add that to the page. And what we need to do now is to listen to when this search bar gets in focus. And when that happens, we want to run some code. So we go to the home view model and we will add a property that is called is searching. And when that property is set to true, it will remove the search bar on the view and show a search bar in the title view. So we create that property first. Private bool is searching, and we add the observable property attribute there, so it will generate the properties for us. Now we will have an error because it should be lowercase, and we should also have this partial, because when we have source generators we need to have partial classes. Okay, and then we also need a command that we can bind the focus to, or I should say we can bind the focus event to. So let's say private void, because this don't need to be async, we should just set a search property. So we say start search. So is searching, and remember it's really important to use the properties here because you want to trigger an onProperty change event, and if you use the field it will not do that. So set that to true. So now if we go to the view, we will realize that we don't have any focus command. We only have a focus and event, and you cannot bind it to events. But in the CommunityToolkit.MAUI, we have a behavior that is called event to command behavior that we can use for this use case. And that is what we should do now. So we go to dependencies, manage NuGet packages, and we will search for CommunityToolkit.MAUI. And this is a really usable NuGet package. There are a lot of nice stuff in there. So I really recommend you to take a look there if there are something that you need. Okay, let's see what we need to do. Yeah, we need to call the use community toolkit method in the MAUI program. Okay, we do that. Can you do that after use tiny mvm here? So, and then we just need to add that namespace too. Let's see if Visual Studio can help us with that. Yes, it could. So we make that global using as well, so we don't need to add that on other places. Okay, now we're fine. So now we can go back to our home view. And now we need to import that namespace, and it should be like this in SAML. And when we want to use behaviors in SAML, we do like this. Search bar and search bar dot behaviors, and we have toolkit colon event to command behavior, and then we have event name property, and that is focused. And now we can bind to the command we want to use. So binding start search command. But if we want IntelliSense here, we can also do that. And then we need to set data type. And there are also another reason for that. It's to get the bindings compiled to have better performance. So we do that. View models x colon data type is vm colon home view model, and now you will see we will have IntelliSense here. So start search command. For some reason it will not find that command, but I'm pretty sure that it will be that name. If we're not sure about that, we can try to build, because we will get a build error if it's not correct. But we have another problem. We need to close that one. Okay, now we can try to build it and see if this works. Binding property search command not found. Okay, so we go here. Of course, we need to have this relay command attribute there. And now it should work, because now the source generators will kick in and generate that command for us. So what Community Toolkit also have is a converter that invert bools, because you cannot say that, for example, is visible, and then we have binding, and we have, in this case, is searching. We cannot say that it should be we cannot say that this should be visible when it's searching is false, and then we need to use a converter or create a is not searching property. But in this case, I prefer to go with the converter. So to do that, we need to add the converter to a resource dictionary of the page. So content page dot resources, And the reason that we can use content page here is because TinyView has content page as one of its base classes. So then we can say toolkit.invert bool converter, and then we need to give it a key. So just invert bool. And now we can go and use that one here. So is searching converter is equal to, and then static resource, because this will be a static resource now, and we say invert bool. And this means that this search bar will not be visible anymore when is searching is true. So now we need to go and create the search bar in the title view. So let's do that. And we will do that by saying, and we will do that by using the attached property on shell. So shell.title view, and here we can create the content that we want to have in the title view. So a search bar, and that one should only be visible if is searching is true. Binding is searching, like that. Okay, let's go and verify that this works by running it in the Android emulator. So here we now have the search bar, and now if you click it, it will move up here. So that works, and that's fine. And now we can go and write some text there. Probably not that nice to have it black, so we can go and say text color is static resource, and let's use the accent text color, because we maybe should change the background color here also to the accent color later, but let's keep that for now. Let's change the text color so it will be more readable. Okay, now we have that. It's time to start searching. So before we go and build the UI for that, we will go to Spotify service and use and build actual search code. So we'll go and add a new method to the interface that is search, and we will have a search result model, and this will take a search text in and also types, and types will be like albums, artists, and tracks. You will see that soon. So we need to go and create this search result model because we don't want to use Android app.appsearch.search. So we remove that using, and we can also remove that system using, and we go and create a new model and call it search result. And you don't really want to see me writing that model, so I will just copy it in here. Otherwise, this will be a very boring video. So right now we have it here, so we only need to go and fix that using. So and now we go back here and we add the correct using. And we will add that one to our global using because this is something that we will use on more places. So we add it here and add the global keyword there. And now error should be gone. Yes. So now we can go and start to implement that method. in the Spotify service. So when we will use a HTTP client, we want to reuse that one for all connections where we have the same headers. You can use the HTTP client factory for that one, but we will do it simple right now and just create a HTTP client inside of here. But we create a private field for the HTTP client. Call it client. Just like that. And we also go and create a private method that we can use in all our methods inside of here to get that HTTP client. And that make it easier for us to refactor this code later if we want to. So private HTTP client get client. So if client is equal to null, we will create a new client. Other ones we will just return the client object. So client is equal to new HTTP client, and the HTTP client will have a base address. There is a URI object with api.spotify.com/v1. And after that, we will also add the authorization header with the access token, just like this. And the access token is something that we already have here in the field since last time, but that is not really true, because if we already have saved it and we have navigate here to the home view without running the initialize method, we will not have that set. So we need also to set that one here. So if access token is equal to null, we go and read that one like this, and then we need to make this async task HTTP client and get client, just like this. So, and we know that we have it because otherwise we'll never reach this code. And that's the reason why we don't need to run contain here. Okay, so now we are ready to start searching. So first we get the client from the method below, await, and now you can see async method. The async keyword are added automatically. Sometimes that happens. I don't know really why it not happened all the time, but yeah, it's nice when you don't have to write it yourself. So when we have the client, we should just call get async, and we will add search in query string and also the types, just like this. And now we need to go and fetch the content. So var content is equal to await response content and read as string async. And now we will hopefully get JSON string back, at least if it is a successful response, and we can check that. So let's say response.ensure success status code, and this will throw an exception if we don't have a success status code. But if we have, we can continue to serialize, or I mean deserialize the JSON string. So var result is equal to JSON serializer dot deserialize, and we want this to be search result, and we pass in content as an argument and return result, not respond, result. So now we are done with the search method, and now we can go to the view model and use this one. So here the home view model are again. So then we need a property that we can bind to the search bar so we can get the text from there, and we also need a command, a search command that will run when we hit the search button. So we create a property, private string, search text, add observable property attribute to it. We create a new method, private async task search, and when we go add the relay command attribute here, it will create this as an async command. And if we use void here, it will just be a regular command, but if we use async task, it will be an async command that is also part of the CommunityToolkit.MAUI. Now we can set is busy to true, because we maybe want an activity indicator in the view that indicate that something is happening. And then we need to set is busy to false when things are done. And we should also add try catch here, so we can catch if something goes wrong, and set is busy to false after that. If we have is busy true inside of the try catch, doesn't really matter, but we can keep it inside of there. And then we catch an exception, just like this. And now we need to do something with this. And this is something that I used to add to this view model, the base view model that we have. So right now we can just create a protected. So we only can call that from classes that inherits from this view model. So protected async task handle exception. And right now we can only write this to the console. Then we can add more proper exception handling here later. Of course, we also need to take the exception as a parameter. So right line, no, we should not just use write, and then we pass the exception there. So, and now we have a warning because we have the async keyword there, so we can remove that for now, and then we can return task.completed task. So, and now we get rid of all the warnings. So let's go back to the view model, and we call await handle exception. Yes, so then we can keep the view models pretty clean and handle this in the base. So we don't need to write this code every time we have a try catch. So now we can go and call the search method result. Of course, we need to inject the iSpotify service into here, like that. And now we can use that Spotify service search text and types. You can create that in a separate variable above. So types, artist, album, tracks, and my idea is to show all of them in the search result. So we have collection view at top of artist that is horizontal, then we have a similar one with albums, and we have a vertical with tracks or songs at the end of the view. But we will see more of that soon when it comes to that. So we should also have a wait keyword here. And now we will have a search result, and we'll get the search result model back. But for the UI, I prefer in this case to put it in a separate view model that I prefer to call search item view model. And right now we can add it just here. Let's see, we can simplify the namespace to have file scope namespace. Then we can just add it at the end. So we have title, subtitle, an image URL, and a tab command. And the tab command is what should happen when we press album, a song, or an artist. So, and now we'll go and map this search result to 3 separate properties, one for artist, one for album, and one from track. And that should be an observable collection for each, so that we can use them in the view. So we add those properties. Should move this service read only to top, because I think that looks more nice to have them there. So okay, so I created an observable collection for artist, album, and tracks, and those have the observable property attribute, and that means that a property will generate. So what we need to do now is to set those properties, but first we need to have a tab command for each of those types. And in this episode we will only have empty commands, and then we can start to implement this in upcoming videos. So if you don't want to miss that, subscribe to my channel, because hopefully I can put one of this episode out each week. So let's go and create 3 empty relay commands, and we can do that after this search command, just like this. So, and now we can just also copy the code I already written for mapping this up, because this is something that is pretty boring for you to look and not related to .NET MAUI. So I just paste that code here, and you can see I set the artist property, albums, and tracks with title, subtitle, and image for tracks, and just the title for artists and albums. Okay, now we are ready to go and do the fun stuff, and that is to work with the view. So we go to the home view, that we only have the search bar right now. So one problem we have right now is that we don't get the keyboard up when we press the search bar. So we need to set focus on this search bar up here in the title view. And that is not that simple, because we want to handle this from the view model. And the best was if we can have focus when is searching is set to true. But there are one way to handle that, and that is go and create a behavior. We used an event to command behavior here, but we can also write our own behaviors. So let's go and do that. Create a folder for behaviors. Create a new class in there, and we name it focus behavior. And behavior should have behavior as a base class, and here we can see we have 2 different options, one generic one and one that are non-generic. So we'll use the generic one, and we'll say view, and set this to view means that we can use it for all views, not only the search bar. So we need a bindable property, because we want to bind to it. So we will create that, and that one should be public static, and it will be of the type bindable property. And this property name will be is focused, and that means that the bindable property will be is focus property. Like that. And now we can stop here, and we can go and create the actual property. That will look like this. Public bool is focused, and it will get the value from the isFocus property, and it will also set the isFocus property in the setter. So we can continue to write this one, bindable property dot create. Now we need the name here of the property, so we use name of, so we don't misspell something, and we set the type to bool, so type of bool, and the declaring type, and the declaring type is what class we are writing this in, so type of focus behavior, and that is so. And Now we will go and do two overrides, one for on attached to and one for on detached, on detaching from, and that is when we add this behavior to a control and when we remove it. And we will use the on detached to on detaching from to reset some states. So override void on attached to and override on detaching from. And here you should use the one with the view with not bindable object. If we use bindable object, we need to cast it to view, so we can use this one directly when we have this generic behavior. So now we will create a private field that is type view and call current view. And in the on attached to, we'll set current view to bindable. And in the on detached to, we will set current view to null. Just like that. So the reason why we set a current view field is that we want to use that in a property change listener. So we go and override on property changed. And now we can check if property name is equal to name of is focused and is focused is true, and of course current view should not be null. And now we can set current view dot focus and call that method to set the view in focus. And the only thing we need to do now is to make sure that this is focus property has the correct state, even if it's changed in the UI. So let's add an focus listener to this current view. And actually we need both an unfocused listener and an focus listener. So focused is plus equal to, create a method for that, and then we do the same for current view dot unfocused. So, and we add those at the end. And unfocused one should set is focused to false, and focused should set is focused to true. Or actually, we can do like this. We can use the same focus changed and use e dot is focused instead. And then we can remove this one and we can add this listener to both of those events because the signature will be the same. And the last thing we'll do is to unsubscribe on detaching from. Okay, now we are ready to go back to the SAML. So to this search bar, we will also add a behavior, but this time it will be our own behavior. And we also need to import the namespaces for that. Behaviors, play, and the namespace is playlist builder.behaviors. So, okay. So search bar dot behaviors. And one problem here is now that the behavior will not have any binding context. But we can solve that by setting binding context. But for that, we need to have a reference to this page. So we go here and say xcolon name is this page, for example. You can set whatever you want here. And then when we create the behavior, dot focus behavior, we set binding context to binding, and then we set source here. and source will be this page. So x:reference, this page. And now we can set path is binding context. Oops. And this means that we are mapping the binding context of this page into this behavior. And now we can say is focused and bind that to is searching. So when is searching is true, it will set focus on this search bar. So let's try if it works. So now when we tap this one, you can see that we have the marker blinking up there. So we have focus. Okay, so now we can go and add the rest of the view. So first we want to have an activity indicator in here so we can see that the search are working. So we will wrap everything here inside of a grid and add some padding. Set that one to 10, for example, and we have it like that. And then we add the activity indicator is running, is bind to is busy. And we will have that in the middle. So horizontal options, center, vertical options should also be center. So, and we will have a scroll view, so we can scroll vertically in this view. Scroll view. And now we will add a vertical stack layout again. And inside of this one, we will add 3 different collection views. And one of them should be vertical, the one at the bottom, and the other one should be horizontal. So we can swipe horizontally to browse the artist and albums. So let's go and create the first one. CollectionView.item source, and we bind that to artists, and the items layout for this should be horizontal list, and then we should have an item template, and the item template here would be the same both for the artist and the album. And that means that we can reuse that one if we want to, but then we need to go and define that in resources. So we create the data template up here, data template, and inside of that data template we will have a vertical stack layout because we will have an image, and under the image we will add a label with the artist name or the album name if we feed it with albums instead of artists. So vertical stack layout, we will have padding because we want to have some padding on the right side of the image. So we set 0, 0, 10, 0 because this is the right value. So and then we will have an image and the source that will be image URL. To get some intelligence here, we can set data type to VM : search item view model, and this is also good to do for performance because the bindings will be compiled. So image URL like that, and we can set mode 1 time because this don't need to listen to changes. That will handle by the collection view. And we'll set a width request to, let's say, 150, and we also set aspect to aspect fill to fill out whole space but still keep the aspect. So we should also set a height request, and that one can also be 150. We also need to add a key here, of course, when we have something in a resource dictionary. So we can say this should be item template. Okay, now we close the image element and we add a label. text binding title. You can have that one also to one time, and then we set it like that. Okay, now we are ready to use that one in the collection view. So here we set item template is static resource item template, just like that. And then we can also close the collection view like that. But we also want to have a label here for a header. Let's say artists. And for that we set font size to, let's say, title. And because we want the albums to look the same, we can copy this and we can just change to albums, and albums here in the bindings too. And we should be ready to go. But before we do that, we'll also set is visible here to binding is not busy. And that is a property that we have from the base view model from TinyMVM. So that means that we don't need to use invert bool converter on is busy, because we already have is not busy property that we can bind to. So let's go and run the app once before we add the tracks. Okay, so here we have a problem. We should also add has result property that we can use. And I also think that it will be good with some spacing in this one. So set spacing to 10. So we will have some space between each item in this vertical stack layout. So we go to the home view model. We create a new property, or actually we create a field that will generate a property. So has result, sorry, property, and now we can go here and set that one to true. Has result and use the property is important, true. So, and we go back to the SAML, and then we set binding here is visible, binding has result. Okay, just like that. And now we can run this app again and see if things works better. Yes, we have it here. Okay, let's go and search for Tom Petty, for example. Oops, nothing happens. And that is because we need to wire up the search bar to the view model. So here we are inside of the search bar in the title view. So we say text binding search text and command. Search command is binding to search command. Okay, now we are ready to go. So let's restart the app. And we search for Tom Petty again. And now we have a result. We have the artist here. We have the albums. And now we can just go and add the tracks in the final collection view. So collection view, item source, binding, tracks. And now we don't need to set the items layout because vertical list is default. And this template will be separate from the other, so we can just define it in here and move it up to the resource dictionary if we want to later, if we want to use it again. So it will be item template. We add a data template. We set data types, and that is still the same. So search item view model. And now we instead add a horizontal stack layout, because we will have the image to the left and then we will have the titles to the right. So we can use a horizontal stack layout. Or we could have used a grid here too if we want to. But right now, let's go with the horizontal stack layout. So image, source, binding image URL, still use one time for mode, because this will not change, and then it's better for performance to have a one-time binding because there are no event listeners. So the image should be on height 30 and also width to 30, and aspect should be aspect fill, just like that. And now we can add a vertical stack layout inside of here, because we want to have both the title and the subtitle. So label, text, binding, title, font size, header, and vertical options to, no, we should not set vertical options there, we should set vertical options here to center instead, just like that. Then we copy the label and add another one and change the subtitle for that one, and font size can be caption instead. Okay, we are ready to go. Let's run the app. So we can search for Tom Petty again. We have the result, we still have the albums, but we also have the tracks. So what we're missing now is some spacing and padding, so let's go and add that. So we do that here on the horizontal stack layout, so spacing 10, and then we want the padding in the end, so padding 0.10, like that. And it's updated and it looks much better. So this was everything for this episode. If you like what I'm doing, please subscribe to my channel and like this video, and we'll see you in part 3. Bye bye.